Well, Breakthrough Energy was created to drive innovation to avoid a climate change disaster. And what I saw in 2015 when the world came together around the Paris Agreement was that there were no technologies that could deliver products without huge price increases. And so, I talked to governments and I said, you need to raise your research and development budgets, and I'll make sure to raise billions so that whatever good ideas get generated, we can make sure they get funded and get into the marketplace. And so, in the last 9 years, we've backed over 100 companies. We're here, showing the state of progress. And, it makes me optimistic that these technologies will get out and start to bring emissions down.
The goal is to get to zero, and we are hearing some of the poorer developing countries screaming from the rooftops, saying we are on the front lines of this. Get your act together. Do you think the richer nations, the more powerful nations, are getting their act together on this?
Well, the need for the rich countries is not only to zero their emissions, but also to take their ability to fund the R&D and fund the early stage rollouts so that it gets to what I call a zero green premium. So then you can say to the middle income countries, no, this is not more expensive. If it's more expensive, they'll say, hey, the rich countries should fund it, but because that would be hundreds of billions, it'll never happen. And so the only way to square the need to deploy this is to get it so that it's not more expensive. And I wasn't sure how well that would go when I started Breakthrough Energy, and I'm amazed. The human innovation is incredible. When faced with an important challenge like this, these companies have responded.
We read reports, people who have left OpenAI, for example, who are warning that, for example, technologies that are being developed could overthrow the US government. Is that the kind of thing that worries you, that keeps you up at night?
Well, I've not heard that particular scenario. AI is so important that we have to make sure it's mostly being used by people with good intent. So anytime you have a new technology, it's mostly used by teachers and doctors and scientists to help them be more effective. If you have somebody who's engaged in something like a cyber attack or, political interference, AI could be used by them. And so you have to make sure the good guys are staying ahead in detecting and preventing that type of usage.
Are they? Because there are bad actors as well, state-sponsored as well.
No, to date, there's nothing gigantic about AI. I mean, misinformation is there, but that's nothing to do with AI. It is something that we've got to anticipate and say, okay, if something's not real, you've got to mark it. Because we know when something's printed on a piece of paper, anybody could have typed it in, but we still think of videos as somehow authentic because it used to be hard to fake. And so a little bit, people have to really ask, okay, where did this come from? There'll be laws creating penalties for fooling people. But the biggest thing is going to be advancing medical science, advancing education, and taking this climate issue and getting that innovation to move even faster.
But in terms of cyber attacks, for example, there are concerns that infrastructure could be targeted and attacked. Hospitals, water, electricity, all of these things could be targeted and hit by the bad actors. There are concerns, genuine concerns around that.
Sure, but we've had that before. You have the defense, which has to be smarter than the offense, and both sides will use AI to up their game.
If we talk about climate again and also link it to, we're seeing the biggest election year right across the planet, in the United States certainly, and here as well. In the US, there are concerns that should we see a Trump presidency, some of these big climate pledges that Joe Biden has made could be rolled back. Is that something that worries you?
Well, I think to solve climate, we need fairly consistent policies because we're asking investors at a very large scale to invest in things that have like a 30 or 40-year payback, like a power plant or a cement plant. And so trying to make it so these policies aren't, going one way and back and forth, that would slow down our effort to make progress on this. And, I'm hopeful that it's not too partisan of an issue because we all live in the same world.
I guess, if I think to 2016, one of the things that President Trump at the time did was tear up the Paris Climate Accord. Do you think something like that will happen again, where that kind of disruption will disrupt the progress that's being made, the attention that is on this issue, but also row back pledges that have been made?
I think there are Republicans who think it's an important issue and some who don't. We do have to articulate, as you see more bad weather events, as you see a way of solving it by using innovation that also improves our energy security, American jobs, companies going around the world with their great innovative ideas that the U.S. has always been a big part of that. And so, we have to engage the voters on this issue because I believe it's an important issue.
So you don't think it's catastrophic, the direction in which we're going at this stage? Sometimes these reports that come out are quite scary, actually.
Well, the human condition overall is improving. I mean, at the turn of the century, 10 million children died every year. Today, partly through things that governments and the Gates Foundation has done, it's under 5 million. And so you wouldn't want to turn the clock back. You read all these scary things. Many of those are real and should drive us to action. But we also shouldn't miss the picture that, the deaths from weather events, are way down. Deaths from earthquakes are way down. And so if we come close to these goals and we build more resilient systems, and for the developing countries, that includes climate adaptation, which is underfunded, continuing to be generous in helping them, every year, overall, humanity will be better off.
And, I guess what I'm trying to get at is the uncertainty of different leaders coming in, different policies. If I was to be completely, blunt, do you think a Donald Trump is seeing that as a priority and will follow through with that? Or do you think his policies, if he does become president at the end of this year, could slow things down for the United States, which does have an impact on the rest of the world?
Yeah, if the U.S. does back off on these tax credits that are really accelerating the innovation, it would slow things down. That would be a setback for the cause. Now, those credits are creating jobs all over the country right now. And so hopefully, by and large, we'll continue backing this innovation, a lot of which is helping create jobs in the U.S.
If it does slow down, what are the consequences?
Well, every year of delay means that particularly the poor countries near the equator, where these are farmers, outdoor farmers who are dependent on every year's crop to avoid malnourishment. That's a much worse situation than in a temperate zone country where you can probably afford 1 year of setback, you have crop insurance, in some cases you have air conditioning. And so the suffering, weirdly, is actually in these countries near the equator that actually did nothing to contribute to the problem.
Are you hopeful about the future of our planet?
Well, I'm lucky. I get to back these innovators. I get to see their work in the lab and help them think, okay, how do we get that out there and avoid millions and millions of tons of emission just for every single company of the over 100 that are here. And so that does make me hopeful. In no sense is this going to be easy. People who say, wait a minute, this would require a huge acceleration in deployment. They're absolutely right. And that's why we bring this community together, governments, big companies, small companies, investors, and say, okay, now let's build the partnerships to surprise people by our speed of implementation.
And in terms of AI, are you at all worried about the future of AI?
Well, certainly AI is a wonderful technology when it's used to help with teaching and health. It'll bring changes that will challenge governments to think, oh my goodness, okay, this is changing. You know, how do we step up? And, you know, it's at a time where do people trust government to step in and do those things? How agile will government be? And so this dialogue where governments are starting to pay attention, that's very important.
Bill Gates, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.